and welcome to GG Weekend Watch with myself, Kate Tracey, alongside Dave Young and Andrew Mount to look ahead to the action from Ascot, Haydock, and also a bonus race, and a very good bonus race from Punchestown in the form of the Grade 1 Morgiana Hurdle on Saturday. Now, looking back at last week's results, no joy at Cheltenham for the lads last week, but they were both in agreement with Fresh Perspective and Issam at Wetherby. Now, both of those two won at 15 to 8 apiece, including the former as Andrew's nap of the weekend. But Andrew was keen to emphasise the fact that, of course, he did tip up as Issam on this podcast, but then he did have another selection in his column. So for the benefit of transparency, we're letting you know, as we always do, about the selections and then how they fared the following week. So well done, lads, for those two. Right, we will press on with the action. The 115 at Haydock is a handicap hurdle, 4-year-olds and older, over 2 mile 3 furlongs. So we have 2 to 1 the field in this one. Kabral de Mathan it is who heads the way, Dave.
Yeah, good looking race this one, to be fair. There's some good field size this weekend. Obviously, that was, I guess, my excuse for last weekend at Cheltenham. A bit too competitive was the race.
Yeah, we just want it enough. We don't want to walk over. We don't want it too competitive. It's fine line.
I take the walkover. That's why it's good you've touched on the Punchestown race. We've got there's some good action, but races like this look pretty good as well, to be honest with you. There's been loads of talk for a long time now, but especially this season, about Dan Skelton and his title charge. You know, when we talk about trainer form as well, like, he feels like he's got such an abundance of talent that he's just never out of sorts. And I think that echoes people's comments with the trainer form, that you're just like cyclically running horses and then they should be able to win at certain times. Lots has been made of about like stable switches they've had as well, because Kabral de Mathan was with Paul Nicholls last season, got a wind in the end, and then 3 got close second places after, but changed ownerships, joined the Skeltons, and those stable switches as well. They've been running ever since Dan Skelton's been in training with Harry Skelton riding them. I think they're about 39% return on investment. They're well above expectation on there. If you switch to other jockeys as well, it drops the return on investment, but just whoever's riding for Dan Skelton on a stable switcher, if their first one is in a handicap, excuse me, is a profitable way to play it. Obviously, we have got Harry Skelton on this one. He's the qualifier in there on that angle alone, but his last few runs have been RPRs of 141, 141, 140. He's got an official rating of 140. So again, I know they're just opinions on those types of figures, but he's already running up to around this sort of mark. He is a young enough horse that should be improving. And what will make him improve is not only the switch to Dan Skelton, but stepping up to 2 miles 3 furlongs. He's got the same sire as the likes of Lucky Place and July Flower. And for all that July Flower won that Arkle trial last week, she's stamina laden. She's like wins on like slow ground, and obviously it was testing ground at Cheltenham. But Lucky Place, we know, at the middle distance improved, sort of threw his hat in the ring for Stayers Hurdle, didn't quite pan out. But this horse is going to have so much more to come now, stepping up in trip. Plus, you add in the factor that Dan Skelton's flying and he's doing so well with these horses that switch over. I think the 2 to 1 about him is more than fair at the time of recording. It's a handicap, so it's sort of only so short they'll ever get. I feel like 6 to 1, 6 to 4 tends to be about the basement on these types. So probably a little bit of juice in there, but I fully expect Kabral to Mathan, and that's easy for you to say, to win the opener for us.
There you go, Kabral de Mathan. It is interesting, isn't it, with these stable switches from Paul Nicholls, because it doesn't feel like a yard we should have assessed like all that much, Andrew, in terms of if the horses have gone on to improve. And of course, we've only got a very, very small sample size to be able to go off so far. But there was that horse, I was just trying to find it there, Cheltenham last week, stable switcher to the Skeltons, and came there travelling, made a Horlicks of the last and lost the race on the back of that, whose name completely escapes me, but you just thought, oh, he's going to be off for his life on this stable debut for the Skeltons from Nicholls. But again, we probably haven't got enough information to know if horses are improving by going to Skeltons from Nicholls just yet.
Yeah, I can look that up while Dave gives his spiel for the next race. But yeah, interesting stats with this race is the 2 mile 3 handicap hurdle. Top weight's got a poor record. In the past 10 years, there's been 14 top weights, including joint or co-top weights. None of them won. Only 2 of them finished in the first 3, which is not good news for 4 6s on a 4-timer for Ollie Murphy and Sean Bowen, and the best price 6 to 1. Now, the age stats are particularly interesting. 9 of the last 10 years winners were aged 6 or younger, with 5-year-olds doing especially well. And most of these are much older. There's only 3 horses who fit the bill. Now, 8 of the last 10 winners had won once or twice previously over hurdles, so they perhaps had a bit in hand from the handicapper. They hadn't won 3 or more times, so that sort of rules out Kabral and Mathan. As Dave says, does get on does particularly well with stable switches in handicap company. Most of the profit comes in handicap hurdle company. Although I did look at what happens with those handicap switches for Skelton who line up after a wind operation, and they don't do so well. You'd lose a £16.35 to a £1 level stake. There's quite a few qualifiers, 58 with only 15 winning. So yeah, I can see the case for Kabral and Mathan, but at the prices and a good statistical fit is Andashan for Chris Gordon and Freddie Gordon, another informed trainer jockey combination. This one's got, it fits the age stats, fits the weight stats, got one previous win over hurdles. That was on good to soft ground, has won a bumper on good to soft. Both those wins came at Kempton, but did seem effective left-handed, having finished third at Newbury on his reappearance last time out. That run after a break of 257 days might bring him on, so I'll go Andashan here.
Andashan at 4-1 to take on Kabral and Mathan. Now, I have to admit, I got that completely wrong. It was Precious Man, wasn't it, in the grade 2, the juvenile hurdle trial, the triumph trial there. Precious Man, who was on stable debut for Dan Skelton, and I think was the first runner for Johnny Delahaye then for the Skeltons this season. That's why you'd imagine he would have been off for his life to make that impression on this new ownership that's gone into the Skelton yard.
I've got those stats for you now. The Nichols to Skelton switch, 10 runners, all of them lost first time out on the stable debut. Sinatra was the latest one at Newbury. So it's a small sample size. You would have expected just over one winner from that. But looking at the percentage of the rivals beaten, they only beat sort of 33% of their rivals. So they didn't perform particularly well. So that's another thing to bear in mind as well.
That is very interesting. Yeah, that's going to be music to Paul Nicholls' ears, certainly so, because you know that those horses, as I say, probably would have been off for their life to make that impression, switching over to the Skelton. So that is interesting. Small sample size, but definitely something to note. And as I said, Precious Man was actually just on stable debut after coming over from France for the Skeltons and Johnny Delahaye. Right, on to the 130 at Ascot, the grade 2 1965 chase, 4-year-olds and older, over 2 mile 5. Est Francais, speaking of French horses, he is back over for more. 2-1 favourite in this one. So, Andrew, I mean, what are we expecting from him?
Yeah, this is a cracking race. He's back with sort of Tom George now, isn't he? You know, as opposed to Noel George, and he'll be based in Gloucestershire for a sort of mostly British season, and aimed at the King George again. No doubt, a horse in which he finished second, race in which he finished second to Banbridge last year. He's got a good record immediately following a defeat. He was chinned in France when we last saw him. That was over hurdles. But again, it is difficult to know what to expect. He's yet to race here, but you'd expect the track would suit, given that he's run so well right-handed in Britain previously. So yeah, you can see him going out in the front under James Reevely and not seeing another horse. But then you've got Pictor Reeve, who might be a 10-year-old, but he does love this track. He's won this race for the last 2 years. And you look at his last 5 runs at Ascot, they've produced his last 6 runs have produced 5 wins and a second to Shishkin. So that's no bad thing, is it? Jango Baie, because the Arkle winner, despite trip being on the short side that day, he's never finished out of the. Well, he was never out the first 2 until just going down by 11 1/4 in third behind Impere Pass and Gidley Park at Aintree in Grade 1 company last time. He's had a wind operation since we last saw him. Henderson runners do show a profit on first run back after wind surgery, but the bulk of the profits comes at the spring festivals in April and May, not the ones who return from wind surgery at this time of year, as we saw with John Bond, a short price defeat on this angle last week. So I think maybe Jango Baie might just need this. Gidley Park, again, he's a horse who didn't stay 3 miles in the Albert Bartlett's a couple of seasons ago. But you look at his record over sort of 2.5 miles or shorter. He's either won or finished second when he's completed the course. He did pull up once with a physical issue. So he was second to Imperial Pass last time. So I think Gidley Park could have a good chance. Master Chewy, I think he needs a flat track. He's very much sort of an Aintree Newbury horse. So I'm not sure Ascot's going to be ideal for him. So I could see Est Francais winning. I could see Pictory winning. I could see Gidley Park winning. That's not very helpful because they're 2-1, 3-1, and 9-2. So I'm going to go... I'll go Est Francais and just hope he goes out from the front and just puts them to the sword. But I won't be having a bet in the race. I'll just be watching with interest.
It's so difficult, isn't it? Yeah, this is just one of those where financial investment, unless you've got a strong opinion, then you're happy just to sit back and watch this one. But Est Francais, as you say, with Tom George now, of course, Noel's father, and who I used to ride out for, and with that steep hill and everything. Sometimes they do. Well, no, all the time they took a run, but 192 days since we last saw Est Francais back in May. I don't know, Dave, how fit he's going to be, because under what trainership he's going to be, because Noel George, we know, is very good at getting them fit at his training centre. However, Tom George, they always require a run and he brings them on steadily and slowly. However, Est Francais, you probably want him fresh. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
Yeah, you've not made it any easier. Andrew's not made it any easier. Andrew did rule out 2 horses in the race, though, and one of those is the one that I want to make a case for. So, Q Master Chewy winning, because that's the only one I can't make a solid case for. So it's a good looking race, though. I got caught up with Est Francais a bit in the Ryanair last year. Obviously, we know how good Factor File is. I just thought Est Francais was better than he actually is, and I think that run at Cheltenham just made me realise I don't think he's as good as he's rated. He's rated 165 on this, so on paper, getting weight from the entire field, he should dot up, shouldn't he? But you take his 2 runs away from Kempton, his best RPR he's ever recorded has been like the mid 150s. So he's not confirmed to be as high a mark as that. We know that the King George is going to be the big aim for him, and we know that he runs Kempton very well. Now, Ascot, like Andrew said, should suit. They should be sort of like a bit of a match made in heaven, but Pic Dory's already in that spot. Pic Dory didn't have to do anything last year to win. He beat like a £20 inferior rival. It might have been £30. Dashwood Rashford, the 11-year-old, was the closest to him, but he didn't run that well last year. And I thought he ran well in the Charlie Hall Chase, but he's a horse that likes to be dominant from the front. And Harry Cobden knows that Est Francais will want to go and dominate out from the front. And I don't think Harry Cobden is going to let him do that. So I can see Est Francais and Pic Dory possibly spoiling the race for each other in here. So that tempers enthusiasm with both of those at the front of the market. If Est Francais is not off for his life to win this and they're saving for the King George and it's just to spin around a track, then they probably won't be as prominent with him. So as they jump, could be interesting. But I do think the most solid option in here is Jango Baie. He's getting a few pounds from Pic Dory. He's only rated £4 inferior, so that's negligible given he's a 6-year-old versus a 10-year-old. Like I said, I think Est Francais possibly could be a little bit inflated. Now, I respect what Andrew's saying about the wind-up stuff with him. That was on the BHA website before it was on the Racing Post site to say that he's had his wind-up. But he was so good at the beginning of the last season. I know he beat Springwell Bay over a trip that wasn't particularly going to suit, but he's been so keen in all of his races, but he wasn't any of that last year. He looked phenomenal. And as Andrew touched on, he won the Arkle last year, a trip that's too short for him. I thought his run at Aintree was a bit disappointing because I thought Nico let him be shuffled back when he shouldn't have done. I feel like he should have forced the issue a little bit. His jumping wasn't terrible, but I feel like he was maybe blindsiding him a bit, a couple of his fences. But Jango Baie doesn't need to be ridden forward, whereas even Gidley Park in that Aintree race that finished in front of him but wasn't staying on as strongly as Jango Baie probably wants to be prominent. And Master Chewy wants to be at the front as well. So I think there's 4 horses in here that probably need to lead to show their best efforts. Jango Baie can slot in behind them. And on his figures that he's run so far, he's put in some really decent numbers already. His RPRs, he's put 2 in the 160s already. He's only had 4 chase wins, hasn't he? But 157, 161, 163, 159. And just to reiterate what Pic Dory did last year, 148 in this race. So I think there's lots of positives to be taken for Jango Baie. 4-1 about him is probably about okay, I think, in this, but for the sake of getting some Cheltenham talk in here, he's 20-1 for a Ryanair Chase. If he does go and win this race, I know Factor Files the standing dish in that race like a short price favourite, but by the time it gets through to Cheltenham time, there's no way Jango Baie is going to be 20-1 for that race after being an Arkle winner. So maybe it's a case of sticking a little anti-post ticket on, and if he gets beat, you've got the season for him to recover. Obviously, if he wins, that price will shorten, but I'll certainly still be backing him on the day on Saturday. But I do take it on board the fact that this isn't going to be like the season-long target for him, is it? It's not going to be that for many of the horses, but it probably is for Pic Dory. So I still believe that Jango Baie is the one to beat, but he does still need to step up a little bit.
And at 4-1, then yeah, just clipped in from 5-1. Actually got to 7-2, so back to 4-1 now for Jango Baie, and he is going to contract his knee for the Ryanair if he goes and wins this on his seasonal reappearance. A good case is made, and this is just such a good race, such a difficult race. There are so many different factors, so it's going to be fascinating from a tactical point of view. Who actually goes forwards? Who cuts each other's throat on the front end? Who's actually fit enough? Whose biggest target is yet to come? Great race. Really looking forward to it. Now on to the 150 at Haydock. Graduation chase for the 4-year-olds and older over 2.5 furlongs. The Jukebox Man is back for more. 4 to 5 favourite in this one. Iroko again on his reappearance. Knappers, Butch, and Mr. Hope Street rounding out the field. So, Dave, we've got a 4 to 5 favourite in here. You with or against?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. The key thing there you said is the price about him, 4 to 5. He had the option of going to the 1965 chase, didn't he? This is potentially it's a much easier race for him, but it's a tricky one because it's still very similar of 12 months ago when it was Iroko versus Trelawney, basically. It did end up being a match between the two of them, and I'm still stumped when I watch the replay back how Iroko didn't actually win the race. And then we know, with it being a Grand National horse, that maybe they didn't want to win to ruin his mark. He comes in here now. They've done a good job, haven't they? Because he was favourite for Grand National and still off the same mark. But it is a harder race for him this time round. And the recent stable tour comments from the trainers are basically saying he was like it was like not very quick and run off his feet. Struggled with his jumping because of that in a race, a couple of races last season. They're saying they're starting him off in this graduation chase, saying it looks better than last year. They think he needs the run as well. But they were so bullish last year when he gets beat. Maybe are they saying he needs the run and he'll go and win? But it's just the fact that him and the Jukebox Man, in my mind, are the only two horses that can win this. The Jukebox Man is having his first run after a bit of a break. He's had issues with his heels as well. He's going for a King George, isn't he? And this is very much a prep run for him. So I don't think either of the trainers will care if they get beat. The Jukebox Man is better than his mark, I think. They don't really care about ruining that mark because they're not going to be going handicapping with him either. They look at him as a grade 1 horse. So the pair of those look quite good. But what is interesting as well, when I touch on the RPR stuff, which of course is just someone's opinion, but the Jukebox Man got 154 in his Feltham at over 3 miles at Kempton, and Iroko got 154 for his defeat in this race 12 months ago. So there isn't really as much between them as you might think. I think Iroko actually gets some weight from the Jukebox Man in here as well. So when you're saying is the Jukebox Man the one to be on at 4 to 5, I don't think he is. I think in a 2-horse race you can get 11 to 4 Iroko top price with one firm. If I had to have a bet, I would do that. But it's one of those bets, it's probably going to be a value loser because I think the Jukebox Man's a fast horse. As much as he's going for a King George, I don't see him being a Gold Cup horse. He might end up being a Ryanair contender come March. But I think he's the right favourite, but he's just too short for me. So Iroko reluctantly, I'd say, in the graduation chase.
I know what you mean by the term of value loser as well. That makes so much sense because you just can't quite bring yourself to side with that shorter price favourite in a race like this, but then you think that he's the most likely winner. It's tricky. Again, Andrew, we talk about fine margins. There's a fine margin there of how you assess a market to how you assess the race. And Dave was with Iroko, but reluctantly.
Yep. After time alert, I put up the winner of this race last year, Trelawney, for the Baie Nichols yard. Was against Iroko because of his running style. He's a hold-up horse, and since this became a graduation chase, it used to be a novices chase. We've had 8 runnings of it. 5 winners were made, all 3 were prominent. 15 horses were ridden patiently, and they all got beat. Now, Iroko's got a great record when fresh, first, and second in this race last year, not beaten far. He's on 152, the mark he ran in the Grand National off last year, as Dave said. I don't think they're going to be too fussed if he does go up the weights, because you look at the National last year, the 3 who beat him were all sort of carrying 11-8, 11-12, 11-8, something like that. I think if he wins this and goes up 6-7 pounds, I don't think that that's going to be the end of his Grand National hopes. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did well after the wind operation, despite the yard being a little bit quiet. The Jukebox Man, I could see him bolting up in this, but then he's been off for 331 days, and I'm not. I wouldn't be sort of keen on taking that price about him after the absence. Butch, I definitely want to be against. He'd be a place lay for me because he needs to go right-handed, in my opinion. So there's limited evidence since he's gone chasing, but he does jump persistently. Did jump persistently out to his right over hurdles. I think it's going to be accentuated here, going left-handed over fences for the first, exaggerated, I would say. Mr. Hope Street went into my tracker after his 6th at Carlisle last time on his chase debut. Behind the Jukebox Kid, another Ben Pauling runner. Typical Carlisle, you had to be up with the pace that day. The first 4 home were on the front end, whereas Hilberry Hill in 5th and Mr. Hope Street in 6th. Mr. Hope Street, a big drifter that day, sort of 10s from 5s. He thought Skelton's got something in mind for this one. I think he's in this race just to pick up £6,000 for 3rd place to try and contribute to the Dan Skelton Let's Win the Trainers Championship fund. So the one I'm going to sign with is a funny one, at Knappers Hill. It tends to go well in the warmer months. Now he's had 11 starts in his career between April and November. He's won 10 of them and finished second in the other 2 unexpected party at Chepstow when the winner was on the front end in a 4-runner race and got first run. So it's been off for 742 days, but he's still got relative youth on his side. He's not in double figures yet. He's only had 18 runs in his career. So I just thought at the prices I'd give him a little go at around about 12 to 1.
Not the way I thought you were going to be going in this. Yeah, 12 to 1 top price is just contracted actually to 10 to 1 there now for Knappers Hill.
Bear in mind, Paul Nicholls has won this race 6 times in 10 years, although 2 of those it wasn't a graduation, it was a novice chase.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Actually, like I say, as a graduation chase in its new guise. On to the 210 at Punchestown now. The Grade 1 Morgiana Hurdle for the 4-year-olds and older, over 2 miles and half a furlong. Lossiemouth is a 1 to 2 favourite in here. Iransi closest to her at 7 to 2. Also for Willie Mullins, Nadawi and Glenn Kiln round off the field. So 1 to 2, Andrew. Could you make the case that actually is, if anything, a very fair price, really, about her?
Yeah, tricky, isn't it? It's a shame we lost Stateman to injury, because he won that twice in recent years and would have been in this as well, I would imagine. And again, you've got the second favourite trained by Willie Mullins as well here, and Iransi. I mean, I just think it's going to be Lossiemouth. She tends to sort of win at the first time of asking. She did so last season when reappearing on the 1st of December over a trip, over the 2.5 mile trip. Again, you could say, well, the last couple of times she's gone this trip, she has been beaten behind Constitution Hill and falling, but where she was in front at the time behind Stateman. So yeah, I've no strong opinion, but I think Lossiemouth.
Yeah, no seagulls, please, out on the from the track, as she obviously encountered there. It was at Leopardstown in the Irish Champion Hurdle, yeah, where she spotted the seagulls and took her eye off the ball. But at 1 to 2, though, Dave, as I was saying there, it seems to be a very fair price, really, in this. But do you agree with that, or have you got another way to play it?
No, I think it is a fair price, Marisivia, and it was crazy this week as well. I've been caught up with a few other bits, but I saw Amsterdam was a short price favourite for this race, so I assumed that something had been said that Lossiemouth wasn't coming here, because the last I heard from Willie Mullins was that Amsterdam was going for a fight in 5th. He wasn't going to run him in the Morgiana because Stateman was going to come here. I know it's the same ownership and people thinking, well, Stateman's not here, but Lossiemouth, she's obviously running that Christmas hurdle over at Kempton before. Like they don't need to run her over 2.5 miles, even though that's her best trip, especially when it's early in the season, and even more so when it's really slow testing ground. So I wasn't as surprised as other people to see that she was declared here and Amsterdam wasn't, but I think she was 5 to 2 this morning when I looked, which made me think, well, she clearly isn't running then. So yeah, boo-hoo poor me, and it doesn't help people on the preview if we're tipping stuff before the declarations come through. But yeah, I see no reason why she'll get beat. I do understand that 2 miles isn't her best trip, but she's an absolute aeroplane, isn't she? She's only 6, turning 7. And the reality of the situation is, Amsterdam might be a nice horse to potentially turn into a champion hurdler, but he's got to go and do it so far. Lossiemouth, when they come through to Cheltenham, they can run her in whichever race they want to run her in, depending on how the fields turn up at the end of it. But obviously, if they're going to potentially think about champion hurdle, it makes sense at some point in the season to run her in a 2 mile race. I know this is only 3 rivals she's got to take on, and Paul Townend will probably be able to dictate and do what he wants with her. But I think she just wins. I think 1 to 2 about is not a terrible price, but still early enough in the season that you don't want to be slamming into horses. And I can't remember whether it was the Morgiana. I feel like it was a good few years ago when Nichols Canyon beat Forheen when when Forheen was like a short price favourite. It might have been that race, but it's one of these races early enough in the season you just wouldn't want to be rowing in on a horse. But she's got a better chance than the odds would suggest, which isn't really saying much when she's already 1 to 2. But Lossiemouth just wins.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Is like you say, you're not saying that much more so when she's a 1 to 2 shot, and I was saying the exact same thing, but at the same time, it's just a fair price with those little bit of caveats to factor in, especially with we know Willie Mullins' horses only really start to come to the boil around Christmas time. But luckily, the second favourite is also Willie Mullins trained Iransi. But still looking forward to seeing all of those horses back out again at Punchestown. 225 at Haydock. Premier Handicap, the Stayers Handicap hurdle, 4-year-olds and older, over 3 miles. Mathan 2, 5-1 favourite in this one. Winner last time out, which seems to be quite a key going into this race on recent renewals day. But who are you siding with in a very competitive lineup?
Yeah, very competitive lineup. And obviously with 9 races we've got to cover today, I have to pick my battles of races that I get royally stuck into. This one I didn't get royally stuck into, so I need to revisit. But I was very surprised to see Phantom of the Points at 25-1 for this race, given he was fourth in it 12 months ago. The ground was slower than it's going to be this year. And I thought he ran a really good race last year. And even Shoot First that won the race last year, I mean, he was a lot shorter when I first started looking at this. I think he was about 6 or 7-1, but he's as big as 14s now. I just couldn't really believe the price. Now, he's £6 better off with Shoot First for last year. Like I say, he's a big price there anyway. He's had a wind up as well. But the thing is, after his race last year, in the initial aftermath, he was a little bit unlucky the time after. He got his head in front of the run after that, and then he just sort of lost his way for a few races after. But the wind up probably is hopefully going to be the answer to that. Gets off a nice low weight in this race as well, which is half the reason why I made a case for him last year, because most winners of this race win it carrying less than 11 stone 5. I think he's 10 stone 12 this year, so he's got an all right mark in there. So I do need to do a bit more work on the race. My big annoyance though is I'm thinking about pipe horses with the wind surgery. I've had a quick check on a database, but just remember very fresh in the memory Durancon last week at Cheltenham having the wind up, and as much as he looked like a nice progressive horse, sometimes they can be a little bit of a red flag to why a horse is doing something when they've got good form. Like I say, I'm using it as an excuse that might improve Phantom of the Points. But David Pipe this season this year is 0 from 14 with wind up horses having their first run since the wind up in a handicap. Previous seasons, though, he operated at 1.73 against like actual versus expectation, 1.34 and 1.57. So for the 3 prior years, it was a really good factor to follow. In 2025, he's not had a single one. And he had a similar thing a few years ago as well, where all these wind-up handicap horses ran terrible. And then the season after, they ran terrible. And then he ran really well for 3 years. So maybe David Pipe watches these shows, hears our stats, and then goes against the grain. But I thought at 25-1, he was well worth a mention before I do a bit more work on the race.
Yes, a bit more work, but like I said, 25-1 Phantom of the Points on his reappearance start. First starts after that wind operation for David Pipe and Jack Tudor. Andrew, who's siding with?
Yeah, funny with David Pipe wind operations, because when they first had to be declared from end of January 2018, he was 0 from 37 in the first year. And then the following year, he was 9 from 39. He made a profit of £14.83. Because I remember seeing him at the Derby Awards in 2019 saying, "Did you get a new vet for Christmas last year?" Because he seemed to, and he had no idea. He had no idea that he was rubbish with wind ups, and now he was good with wind ups. It was just completely hadn't registered. It was quite interesting. And again, he's had 3 years where you made a profit at SP backing them, and other years where not done so well. So I think overall, if you look at his career with wind ups, he's overperformed slightly according to the market when there's not a lot in it. Stats wise, this race quite in the 8 renewals since it wasn't a fixed brush hurdle, going back to when Sam Spinner won in 2017. I think 7 of the 8 winners were between 4th and 9th in the weights. Top weights have done particularly poorly. Runners who ran in a handicap last time out have done well. All 8 winners fit the bill. Those who ran in a class 1 contest, just 1 from 34, and that was Sam Spinner. So again, like last year's winner Shoot First, he's got the top weight stat to overcome and ran in Grade 3 company last time out. And recent form held sway. 7 of the 8 winners finished 1st or 2nd in their prep race. Back all 55 qualifiers, you'd have made a profit at £11.75 at SP, more than double that at Betfair SP. Now, there's lots of qualifiers. One of the ones on my tracker is Electric Mason for Chris and Freddie Gordon. Now, this one was a real eye catcher behind Marchand 2 and with Supremely Western 3rd in that per temps qualifier at Cheltenham's October meeting. Paid to come from off the pace that day. The winner, the 3rd, the 4th, all ridden patiently. Electric Mason took up the running 3 out after racing prominently. Was clear best of those to race on the front end. I thought that 14-1 second was a good effort. And even though we've had a big field, we've seen some horses win this from the front. So I've not looked at the pace map in full yet, but I was determined to back Electric Mason next time out. I think a bit similar profile to Nathalan, who sort of ran a good race from the front at Cheltenham before coming to this meeting and not Mathan, Botox has same yard for Gary Moore. That was in 2022. So I'll go Electric Mason to go from the front and hopefully hold on.
16-1, and you've got a claiming jockey on board as well, which is the thing that I've noticed from
Yeah,
the past 5 years.
Actually, I've just got that in my notes. Jockeys claiming £5 or £7, 4 winners from 18, profit at £39, and 4 of the last 5 years the jockey's taken weight off.
Literally, that is exactly that. So, I mean, you're claiming the 3, so you're still claiming, but it's not the 5 or the 7, but at least it's a claiming jockey on board. That was one of the main things that stood out for me looking back through the last 5 years, was the claiming jockey angle in here. So I'm pleased that at least we're agreeing on that. I'm actually going to side with 2 in here. Mathan 2 for the win last time out angle in here, but Ben Jones doesn't claim, and I thought Julian Mathan at 11-1 was very interesting. £7 claim at Harry Atkins on his back row. That, of course, he didn't run overly well last time out, but with that 1 run to his name and under his belt in a really competitive race, hopefully he can come to the fore at a bigger price. Onto the 240 at Ascot now, the Grade 2 Ascot Hurdle, 4-year-olds and older, over 2 mile 3 furlongs. Now, Woodhoo it is who heads away here as the 11-8 favourite. Gordon Elliott coming over with this mare on her reappearance, Andrew.
Yeah, she's an absolute cracker, isn't she? And I did tip her up on her final start last season when she ran against Lossiemouth over 2.5 in the William Hill Aintree Hurdle. Ran an excellent race that day, chasing home. I was going to say the favourite, but because she was second favourite, Lossiemouth, Constitution Hill, because with even money when falling in that race. You look at her other records, other runs since leaving Sir Michael Stout, joining Gordon Elliott. 7 wins from those other 7 starts. I mean, it's quite a record, isn't it? 7 wins and a second to Lossiemouth in Grade 1 company from 8 starts. I think she's going to run a big race. I think I'd maybe go without the favourite, though, and look at Altabelli, who's something of a course expert. Now, Harry Fry's 7-year-olds have 4 runs here at Ascot, second, third, first. The 2 defeats came over the mile 7.5 trip. The 2 wins came over this 2 miles 3.5 distance. And I just thought, given his love of the track, his first run after wind surgery, and he has won after a wind operation before, I thought Altabelli, each way or without the favourite, might be the way to go. But I expect Woodhoo to win this.
Yeah, and she's priced up accordingly as well at 11-8, heading the way. But Altabelli, either the without marking or for the the each way play, then Altabelli at 8-1 is the other way to go then for Andrew. But of course, we do have some notable rivals in here, Dave. Celtic Dino. I don't think there's been more chat about that Welsh champion hurdle run than from last weekend, and the timely form boost, the form boost for Alexi. Of course, Celtic Dino didn't go in the Great Wood because of the ground, so is looking likely to go here now as a 7-1 chance. But does that form even equate to what Woodhoo has done so far in her career?
No, quite simply put. They're all nice horses, aren't they? It's good with the Altabelli mention for Andrew there, because obviously keen not to take on Woodhoo essentially in the market, and that'll be a nice little after time and form boost for Julian Mathan for you, wouldn't it? Because when he won here at Ascot, I thought the pair of them were going to be quite good, but I don't know how good the form's working out for Altabelli. But nice option and a nice horse for this particular race. But much as there are some nice names in here, Woodhoo, like at the end of last season, she looks like she is a very, very special mare. She's only officially rated £3 inferior to Lossiemouth. And we're talking about Lossiemouth, who's favourite for a champion hurdle this season, over 2 miles, which isn't probably her best trip or might not be. And over her best trip, Woodhoo got really close to her, and that was off the back of running in a handicap hurdle at Cheltenham. And this race is going to be worth 17 grand more than what she won in the Martin Pipe, even though it's at Ascot at the start of the season. It's like phenomenal placement from Gordon Elliott, but it's just the way the conditions of the race work out. When we look at Lossiemouth, when she's 1-2 in a small field that could turn tactical, they're not overly going to be fussed if she gets beat, because she's been beaten before in the times. And then you see 11-8 about Woodhoo, who, as Andrew touched on, the form for Gordon Elliott, she just wins everything apart from the time that she got beat by Lossiemouth. She goes well fresh. She runs perfectly at this particular trip. And she looks like potentially like a genuine contender for a mare's hurdle. Like if Lossiemouth went to the champion hurdle, Woodhoo wins the mare's hurdle. It's as simple as that. She's 11-8. I think she's a massive prize. I think she should definitely be odds on in this race. And I think it's worth mentioning as well, while I'm chucking out Cheltenham content left, right, and centre, Woodhoo for the Mayor's Hurdle and Lossiemouth for the Champion Hurdle. Obviously, if they both win this weekend, that could shorten up, especially if everyone says Lossiemouth's going to go there. Currently pays 16 to 1 or 17 to 1 for the top price. So another little bet that maybe they don't have to necessarily win this weekend. It could still hold weight when it comes through to March. I think that looks massive when you think that Woodhoo could be very impressive in here. And if Lossiemouth goes and wins at 2 miles and they say that they might stay at that trip, I think that price could be massive. But the price that is definitely massive for Saturday is 11 to 8 Woodhoo. That would be a GSI if Willie Mullins was doing this preview.
There you go then. Woodhoo 11 to 8 favourite, perhaps should be odds on in this, and it's really hard not to disagree with that. So if she does contract, don't be surprised whatsoever if everyone's along the same sort of thought patterns as we are. On to more graded action now. The grade 1 Betfair Chase at 3 o'clock up at Haydock, 5-year-olds and over 3 mile, 1.5 furlongs. Grey Dawning on his reappearance starters, back for more in this as the 6 to 5 favourite. Good old Raw Guy at the age of 11, rising 12, back over his favourite course and distance as well. But Dave, how are you playing it?
I don't really know. I always get overthinking in the Betfair Chase because it used to be easy in the good old days when you just had some absolute monsters running this race. And then even in recent years, it should have been easy, shouldn't it? With Raw Guy just going in and in and in. Since 2005, when this race was formed, we've had 20 renewals, but we've had only 11 different names on the trophy. Obviously, that brings in Raw Guy again, but he's 11 now, isn't he? Surely he can't do it, but he'll have his fans, won't he? Something else that's interesting since the race was formed is 8-year-olds have a terrible record. Where we talk about actual and expectation, one would be horses running to expectation. You could argue a little bit they should run a little bit under that because of overround in the market. But 8-year-olds run at 0.29, so less than a third of the 8-year-olds win that should win. But don't want to use that as too much of a negative because I think that Grey Dawning is the one that's going to go and win this one. Because if you look at the race, we've got 3 8-year-olds in here. If you back them all level stakes and Grey Dawning wins, it still proves that system right because you'd lose money if you were to back all the 8-year-olds. But I just think that it's very hard to get past Grey Dawning. He was good in the race last year. I think it'll be an easier task this year. I don't think the ground will be quite as bad. And I was probably a little bit surprised with how well he ran last year. Like tanked through the race, maybe jumping towards the end of the race cost him a little bit as well. But he's going to be a stronger horse now. We clearly know from last year's run that he does go well fresh. And on official ratings, he's well clear of this. And again, since 2005, I think we've only had one winner that wasn't rated in the 160s. He's the only horse rated in the 160s in this race. So I think because he got beat in the race last year by Raw Guy, there's reasons to be a little bit cautious. But the extra year for him not being like a second season novice coming into this, and the fact that Raw Guy is a year older now means I think Grey Dawning beats Raw Guy in here. And I do love Haiti Couleurs. The running last time out was a decent effort, and we know that this is a horse that's like going to be going for a Grand National as the season progresses. So again, will they be mindful of the horse's mark and maybe they're just getting some experience? I don't know, but on figures, he's got the best part of a stone to find with Grey Dawning. I mean, there's no better hiding place than to run against a horse as good as Grey Dawning, that they can get a good performance. Haiti Couleurs can get loads of experience, can come second in here. So the market's probably got it right. And that's saying that, I think that Grey Dawning is the most likely winner. Whether the 5 to 4 about him is quite as exciting when I'm putting some negatives in there and we go back to Woodhoo, who's, as far as I'm concerned, like almost bomb proof. Obviously, we can't really say that, gamble responsibly, but price wise, that's the reason why I'm tempered enthusiasm about Grey Dawning. For all that I think he'll win, his chance is well and truly covered in his price. So he'll go up as a selection. I don't know if I could get stuck in at 5 to 4, but you never know, he might drift.
Yeah, might do then, because I mean, it is like I say, to reverse the form from last year. I think I napped him in this race last year and did just sort of bottom him out, didn't it, for his next start, and then he came back good again later on in the season. But it kind of derailed his season ever so slightly because of the ground, because he was only a 7-year-old then. Haiti Couleurs, of course, has, well, still technically has the option of the Coral Gold Cup next weekend. It's about a 20 to 1 shot for that. And you know that Rebecca Curtis was between two minds whether to go for the Betfair Chase or to go for that. And it wouldn't have been an easy decision whatsoever. 100 to 30 in here, though. But yeah, really interesting race again, Andrew, for all that we've got a small runner field.
Yeah, this is an absolute belter. I was disappointed that Grey Dawning didn't make the Gold Cup last year, because having sort of been all over him for the Turners 2 seasons ago and then expected him to win that and win the Gold Cup. Not even, you know, for a Turners winner, not even to run at Cheltenham, you know, when he wasn't injured, was a strange old one. But like you say, it did seem to, he had such a duel with the Royal Piggy in this race last year that it did seem to sort of knock him out of sync for the remainder of the season. He pulled up in the King George after some early mistakes, and then came back fresh to win at Kelso. Now, yeah, interesting stats about the 8-year-olds that Dave's given there. You'd think, I mean, Skelton, it's all out for this, isn't it? 112 grand towards the trainer's title. He'll have his eye on that. He's got to run a big race, hasn't he? And finish first or second. I'd be surprised if he didn't. The trainer blamed the soft ground for last year's defeat and said, had it been quicker, it would have been a different story. Maybe Harry Skelton would ride him slightly differently as well and have him a little bit closer to the pace. Again, Royal Pagaille, I can't back. I mean, I've tipped some Venetian horses. I've probably got a bit carried away after JLo won, and then forgot my warning that with it being a dry autumn, they might not be ready to go when so early in November this season. And since JLo's victory in the Charlie Hall, Venetians have been not finding anything at the business end. I was at Leicester on Monday. She had a 2-to-1 shot and a 4-runner maiden hurdle that sort of traded 1.37 in running, and then finished third of the 4 runners. And Tanganyika, I tipped that in my column and travels really well, but then faded into 5th at Cheltenham last week. So I want to see sort of more from the yard before I get involved with her. So much as I love Royal Pagaille, I've got to oppose him. Haiti Colo, he's won 4 from 4 other fences since his second to destroy the evidence on his Chase debut. He looks most progressive. Every single person in the world on Twitter has backed him at 50-1 for the Gold Cup, and now he's shorter. And they're all going to come out the woodwork. Should he win the Betfair Chase Impressive and be about 10 or 12-1 for the Gold Cup. But the one I sort of came to at the prices, and given the good stats for younger horses as well, 6-year-olds in particular, maybe I'll just take a chance on handstands here for Ben Pauling. He was beaten by Resplendent Ground. He's come back at Carlisle, but I think he'll improve for that. And of course, he did improve for 3 miles at Sandown last December. I know he pulled up behind Corwell Potter when last running over this trip, but he was badly hampered that day, and that did for him. So I think the one I'll take sort of a progression and youth over the older guard, and see if handstands can give Great Dawning a race here.
Oh, the 6-year-old at 6-1 as well. Handstands to take on the older guard in this one. But again, yet another fascinating race that we're being served up on Saturday in the Betfair Chase. The 3:15 at Ascot handicap chase, 4-year-olds and older over 2 miles and half a furlong. Teddy Blue, good old Teddy Blue, back over this course and distance again that he won over last time out when beating a few of these in behind there. So, Andrew, does he double up 4-1? Is that a fair price, or are you looking elsewhere?
Yeah, that does seem a fair price, actually. He was well backed when winning here from Gabriel's Getaway last time out. 6-1 into 9-2 late. There had been bigger in the morning and the night before. So every reason he could, every chance to expect him to do that again. I didn't like JPR1. I think given his record when fresh, it was all about the Horton Gold Cup last time out, in which he disappointed, albeit at the time Joe Tizard's chasers were running particularly poorly. He hadn't had a chase winner for many weeks, even though the hurdles were running well. Since then, he's taken off. They've got new headgear, got cheek pieces on for the first time here. But I think 15 days after Exeter, a horse who goes well when fresh might be a bit of an afterthought this race. Marta Tour, the next in the market. Again, that was an afterthought for Exeter, him going there. He was due to run here, but then he was pulled out because of the ground, and then turned up at Exeter, drifted markedly in the betting and got beaten out of sight. Gabriel's Getaway can go well again. I mean, I wouldn't put you off the Teddy Blue Gabriel's Getaway forecast, which is going to pay sort of 25-30-1 on current prices. All you're asking the horses to do is do exactly what they did last time over the same course and distance. But the one I keep coming back to, and I'd sort of chuck a couple of quid at, is Boot Hill, who's had 3 goes and 3 runs in handicaps at Ascot, won them all. Last seen in action in January, finishing down the field behind John Bond. That was in Grade 1 company, and I'd probably back Boot Hill to win, and then I'd do the Teddy Blue to beat Gabriel's Getaway straight forecast. So have the price of a lottery ticket on each.
Yeah, that's a good way to play it, isn't it? And it's a good bit of synergy from the course and distance race from last time out for Teddy Blue and Gabriel's Getaway. And then Boot Hill, the winner of this race in 2023, 2022. And of course, we've got Marta Tour in here who won the race last year. So again, Dave, we've got another great race being served up. Loads of form lines over this course and distance in this race in particular coming to the fore once again.
Yeah, and it's typically a race that we see the running in October, don't we? And you can use those form lines to find the winner of this one. And you sometimes can whittle the field down quite quickly. But because of the fact that there was a couple of defections from that race last time, and because it was such quick ground at Ascot, you have to question how much that form might stand up this year. But I say that now, we'll watch it after. And like Andrew said, it could just be the horses to repeat what they did last time. I think it's interesting in the market, though. Teddy Blue's, like, the top price 4-1 looks more than fair for Teddy Blue. Gabriel's Getaway's £2 better off, was only beaten 3/4 of a length and is at 7-1 top price. But that's probably more for the fact that Gabriel's Getaway needs fast ground to show his best. And there's going to be some sort of ease in the ground, isn't there? Martator just looks grossly overpriced, 13-2 top price. It's of a £1 lower mark, I think, than last year, and got Ned Flocks on again. Just looks like a mad price. But like Andrew's touched on, like, the yard aren't particularly flying yet. He was poor in that Howden Gold Cup, which was a second choice. He's certainly a course specialist, and I think course specialists do tend to run well here, like Andrew said with Boot Hill. I'm a bit confused with JPR1 because, like Andy said, goes well fresh. They went too quick in that Howden Gold Cup. There was obviously one horse that was very well handicapped, and then there was Paul Nicholls' potential champion chaser that's now turned into a Gold Cup horse because it got beat type horse in the race. Definitely a bit confusing, but the Ts&Cs only had 3 runners at the November meeting, didn't they? All 3 of them won, and I feel like JPR1 was so disappointing. I probably could excuse the effort, and I think there was no need for him to really get too heavy on him in the race in there. So I can see a case to be made for him at 6-1. It just looks like a really confusing race where you could read a dozen articles from different tipsters, and I think someone could tip a different horse and all of it. So I'd keep my powder dry, I think, for this. If it was for the sake of people doing a play spot or they needed a selection for the ITV7, I would probably be looking between Martator and JPR1, and I would probably just side with Martator given the fact that he's well handicapped on what he did in this race 12 months ago. So Martator is a token selection, but won't be carrying any of my money.
There you go. That's it. Let's say for a token section here or for your ITV7 or anything like that. But of course, it is safer gambling week as well. And Dave has just reminded us that you do not have to have a play in every single race. Just happily sit them out. We've got loads of races to go out this weekend, loads of fun, exciting races. You are certainly allowed to sit out a fair few of them if you just want to enjoy the spectacle in itself. Right, on to the 3:35 at Haydock. This is a 0-145 handicap case, 4-year-olds and older, over 3 miles, 1.5 furlongs. Now, Showman Yuchi, is that how I'm saying his name, is the 9-2 favourite in this one. A Confusion, also a last time out winner, 11-2 next in. So, Dave, back to you for this one, please.
Yeah, I'd also be saying Showmanucci. He looks a really interesting horse, doesn't he? You don't get too many 8-year-olds that you'd say are really progressive, but he's had just the one chase start. I thought it was a pretty good performance. Even his time before that in a handicap hurdle, I think it was, he battered a horse and looked like he was a horse that's way ahead of his mark. Can be tricky with some of those performances because he in isolation you'd look at and say, I think he's better than his mark. If you actually start to look at the substance of the form from horses in behind, I mean, both those wins look pretty poor, but that run last time out was after a 700-day absence. That was in February, so coming out now off of another little mini break looks like it's fine. The handicapper only raised him £5. I think he was sort of in no man's land of how much to trust the form, which is why I say you have to trust what the horse has done rather than always look at the horses in behind. But I reckon there's a chance the £5 rise is lenient for the manner in the way that he won the race anyway. It's one of those, like, I think 5-1 about him's fine. I can see him being supported, but we know that the trainer does well with horses after a bit of a break and sort of first time out in these types of races. I would also be cautious though, because if any of his yards start to drift in the market, then I don't think they've got any chance at all. So I'd keep an eye on the fact that he's 5-1 and he's not been nibbled straight away. But if he gets nearer the time, he's around about that price. I definitely want to be on with Showmanucci. There's a few other nice horses in here. I think Confusion, if the jumping holds up, looks to have a massive chance near. Famous Bridge as well, round Haydock's always a good horse, and I think he won off a similar mark even though he got disqualified when he beat Apple away. And Whistle Stop Tour, I see there's been a bit of money for that horse, but don't forget that this horse was at the Wise Guys tip for the Ultima at Cheltenham and was absolutely battered out of sight. I like Whistle Stop Tour. I think it's a nice horse, but hasn't run well for a long time. I know there was a handicap hurdle run last time at Cheap Pieces that looks like they may have turned a bit of a corner, but I don't think a performance like that would be anywhere near this horse winning this race. So prop that up when Whistle Stop Tour wins the race. But Showmanucci will be carrying a bit of my money. If he starts to drift a little bit, though, I might be tempted to cash out. But Showmanucci, I think, will win the 3:35 at Haydock.
Okay, there you go. We'll win that contest at 3:35. The race coming up at 92 the field, and plenty of different angles and ways to play this one as well. Andrews, how are you playing it?
Yeah, good race this. Similar to Dave. I mean, the market's been a good guy. 9 of the last 10 winners with the front 3 in the betting. Seasonal debutants have done well. It's split 5-5 between seasonal debutants and horses who had a recent run, but the debutants outperformed their odds, and you'd have made a profit backing them blind. And last time out, winners have also done well. 15 last time out winners have run in the last 10 renewals of this race. And 5 of those won for a profit of £13.25 to £1 level stake at SB. There's lots here. Confusion, who surprised me by being a Sue Smith break returner who won, but did get the run of the race at Weatherby. Saladin's Son, but you look at his record since joining Anthony Honeyball, 3 from 3 right-handed, pulled up when 15-8 at Foss last, the only time he went left-handed from his current yard. And when he was with Chris Gordon, his final left-handed start for him, he was beaten at odds of 3-1 on at Plumpton, and the time before that it was beaten at odds of 13-8 over hurdles at Fontwell. So maybe he doesn't want to go this way around. Showman, top of the bill, he tends to need 2 or 3 runs. He comes to fruition in sort of late December, January time. So I think there are good races to be won with top of the bill this season, but probably not this one. So sort of process of elimination, looking for a horse who's making its debut, won last time out, and likely to be prominent in the betting. I came down on the side of Showman Uchi.
Okay, I'll shoot. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something else.
No, I was going to mention Lucinda Russell's sort of chasers that they were very slow to sort of come to hand this season, and but the recent signs are more encouraging. So Whistle Stop Tour was sort of 10-1 into 7-1 when the final decks were released. So Whistle Stop Tour would probably be the danger, but I'll go Showmanucci.
Okay, go Showmanucci as well, but Whistle Stop Tour perhaps the danger, and that was the horse that was really catching my eye as well in this at a 10-1 shot. I was between, well, to be honest, I actually discarded him at the end. It was between Confusion and Saladin's Son, who are my selections in here. So taking you lads on, and that is actually the final part of the ITV scheduled races that we've blown through. So Andrew, I'll go back to you, please. Anything from anywhere else?
There's a couple, if I can just find them. Good Look Charm was a horse I mentioned for Cheltenham last week, was pulled out because of soft ground. Got a good record right-handed in mares only races. 6 runs, 4 wins, a third and a 7th, profit of £36.13. So I thought Good Look Charm could go well on the 12.55 at Ascot, as long as the rain forecast for Sunday doesn't come in earlier than anticipated. And the 105 at Punchestown, the Grade 2 Florida Pearl beginner's chase. Cocktail Divan for Henry de Bromhead. Interesting one about this one was that after winning his maiden hurdle, Henry de Bromhead put him into a Grade 1 contest. Now, he's done that 29 times, and 28 of those got beat. The only one who didn't was Bob Ollinger. So, it's not easy to make that leap from maiden hurdle winner to Grade 1 hurdle winner. And although he was beaten on his chase debut last time, that run would have been needed. So I thought Cocktail Divan will take a step forward in the 105 at Punchestown.
Lovely. And we'll go over to Punchestown as well for some of those extra bets. Dave, there's loads to go at for you. So what else caught your eye?
Nothing at the time of recording, just because it's been tricky to get these races with enough justice in them, as well as the other stuff. But I'm glad that Andrew's mentioned Cocktail Divan, because that was a horse of mine to follow the 5 for the season. Interested to see how that horse gets on, and again, not done all the work on the race as yet, but yeah, I'm glad to see that Andrew likes the case that could be made for that one.
Lovely job. And as always, check the lads' columns before the weekend for any change of selections. We know what the weather's like at this time of year, and it could really put some races into melee, non-runners and all of the like as well. So make sure to check out their columns. So Dave, I'll go back to you, please, for your nap. I'm going to guess can I guess? You
can guess where it comes from if you want.
Well, Ascot.
It does. And can you guess the trip?
Is it over 2 or 3.5 furlongs?
Yes. And is it trained by Gordon Elliott?
Is it Woodhoo?
Yes, Woodhoo. Like I say, everything's always price related in betting, and I know different people have different views. Some people would rather a 20-1 winner than an 11-8 winner, but if the price is wrong, which I believe it is with Woodhoo, then they're the ones you've got to fancy the most. So said it before on other shows, I wouldn't have a single excuse for Woodhoo to win, so therefore she has to be the nap.
Yeah, sometimes it is just limiting the excuses, isn't it? I'm pleased that you've gone with her. I was going to go with her as well, to be honest. So I would gladly let you, because I've actually done no explanation as to why. You've done a very good job of it. So Dave will definitely have wood here, and especially the fact that I could guess that as well. Andrew, I'm trying to decide what your nap would be.
Mr. Coffee to finish second. He is running, isn't he?
So again, sorry, I missed all of that.
Mr. Coffee to finish second.
As always, literally every single week without fail. Yeah, we don't get to see him. But who's your nap?
I normally just choose the horse I've bet, and the last couple of weeks it's been Impose Etoile and whatever the thing was called last week that I put up, and the only one I bet. But I've not had a bet on anything so far. Normally I'll find one when I'm going through it on Thursday morning, but I'll go Show Manucci. I think given the fact that we all sort of seem to be quite strong on that one's chances, and we know that Sam Thomas's break returners do well over fences. It's 19 from 66, profit of £47.66 at SP. So yeah, Show Manucci to return from that break with a win at Haydock on the 335.
335 Haydock. Show Manucci currently a 9-2 shot, and you in agreement about that one as well. So nicely done, lads. And that is everything from us on this week's show. So big thanks to the pair of you for all of your hard work. As always, as I was saying earlier on in the show, it is Safer Gambling Week. We say it every single week, but it just gives us a good opportunity to really, really highlight it. So enjoy the action this weekend. Please bet responsibly, and we will be back with you next week.